Are you looking for options for lenses for your dental photography? Or are you perhaps looking to upgrade your existing lens? In this video, I'm going to talk you through a few options that are available, and then that will help you make a decision as to which one is best for you. Hello everyone, and welcome to another short video. In this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at our macro lens. Now, before we jump into a closer view of our lens, we want to understand what is actually a macro lens. A macro lens is essentially a lens that allows us to get really close and yet be able to focus. We can get a 1:1 magnification ratio. That's what is the meaning of a macro lens. The other thing we need to understand is it's also called a prime lens. A prime lens essentially means that the focal length on the lens is fixed. Now, in this case, it's fixed at 100 millimeter. You can't zoom in and you can't zoom out. So if you look at another lens, for example, this is the other one that I use for general photography and outdoors and stuff like that. It's got a focal length of 70 to 100. So it can zoom all the way out to 300 and back into 70. Now, that's not possible with our fixed focal length macro lens, and that's what makes it a prime lens. Now, apparently in the photography world, the prime lens always tends to get a better image quality. So let's get up close. I'm going to see what the numbers on the side mean, what are these little switches, and how to understand them a bit better. So this is our macro lens, and let's see what are some of the markings. It says Canon Macro Lens EF 100 millimeters. That means the focal length of the lens is 100 millimeter. 2.8 is the maximum aperture that the lens will do. USM stands for ultrasonic motor, and that's the brand name Canon lens made in Japan. 58 millimeters is the thread size of the lens in the front element. So it's particularly useful when you're going to attach, say, some filters on the front element or a ring flash. So you need to know what the diameter of the lens is across, and that's at 58 millimeters. So that's the front bit. If you go a little bit further back, you can see this little window, and this window essentially tells us the magnification ratio. So if you look at the small one, it says 1:2, and then if you rotate the ring, you can just use this rubber to turn the lens to a particular magnification. So in this case, it's 1:1. If I turn it further, it goes 1:1.5, 1:2, 1:3. Now, for most dental photography, we need a 1:3 magnification ratio. Now, there's another switch on the side that says AF and MF, standing for autofocus and manual focus. For dental photos, we generally tend to use a manual focus. Why do we want to use a manual focus? Is because now, once the magnification ratio is set, say for example at 1:3, then you can actually go into the subject or reach out to try and get the focus. And if you take subsequent shots by that method, by moving in or out, the magnification ratio stays the same at 1:3. So you get consistent results. All the images, they are framed exactly in the same way. So the lighting is the same, and the frame is exactly the same as well. If you really want some really close-up photos, say for example from the canine to canine, you can use a 1:1 magnification ratio. So that's that little window there. You can use autofocus as well, but then it means that the images are not consistent, and you probably need to do some post-production editing on the computer. So there's another switch there, and it says 0.31 and 0.48. That is essentially useful when you're in the autofocus mode. This helps the autofocus system to quickly engage and get focused on a particular object. So it's very quick if you've already aligned it to whatever area that you're working on. So if it's slightly far away, you can use a 0.48. If it's quite close, you can use a 0.3. So it just helps with the autofocus system. And how to attach and remove the lens. There's a little thing on the side, and I will show you guys already know this. That takes it off. And when I'm putting it back, you can see a little red mark there, and there's a red mark on my lens. and just align the two dots really carefully and then twist. You should hear an audible click. There we go, and that says that it's actually fitted all the way in. You have to be careful. You just give it a good little turn and see it's actually fixed in position. We don't want the lens to fall or do it. And finally, on the top, just remove the lens cap. Make sure everything is clean. In terms of maintenance, just a couple of sentences, just a couple of bits about the maintenance. Make sure that your lens is always clean. Now, I wouldn't take any cloth and just start wiping the lens element. If it gets scratched, it can affect your image quality. So the way to do it is take a small brush. You get a dedicated kit that cleans the lens. Take a little brush, remove all the debris from there, and once you've done that, you get a little cleaning solution and a little tissue in that same kit. Wet the tissue and then wipe the lens with a circular motion, and that's what's going to keep it really clean. As you know, electronics don't like dust, so make sure your camera body is always quite clean. So a brief look at some of the options for the lenses that we have. The one on the left is the Canon EF-100 2.8 Macro. This is the one that I showed you in the video. It works on a full frame and the crop sensor. It weighs at about 600 grams. The closest focusing distance is 0.31 meters, so that's quite close. The angle of view is 20 degree, and the cost is about 500 pounds or $620 at the time of making of this video. The one on the right is the 60mm. Now, it's quite a popular one. I used to have it and I really loved it. And it's got a very smooth autofocus, so you can't hear the motor at all. It focuses very quick. You get sharp, crisp images. Some people don't like it, but I really like this one. It works only in a crop sensor because this is an EF-S 60mm. So the EF-S won't work on your full frame sensors, just something to keep in mind. The weight is at about 335 grams. The closest focusing distance is 0.2 meters, which is closer than the one on the left, the 100mm. So that's a good thing because you can get closer to your subject that you're photographing. The angle of view is at 20 degrees, similar to the other one. The price is less than the 100mm. The 60mm costs about 400 pounds or $496. Both lenses have sadly been discontinued. However, you can buy them used. Now, because things are heading towards mirrorless, these lenses will be available on the used market. So you might be able to get them at a good price. So if you're just starting out and you want a normal digital SLR, these ones might be a good starting point. Then the next one, we have the Canon EF 100mm F2.8L Macro. So these are the more professional level of lenses offered by Canon. The red ring says that it's a L series lens. So what does that L stand for? It stands for luxury. It's quite a good lens. It works on a full frame and a crop sensor, weighing at about 625 grams. Focusing distance is similar, 0.3 meters. The angle of view again similar at 19.8. It's got image stabilizer, 4 stops. More about that perhaps in another video. The price is 960 pounds or $1,180. Now, it is roughly twice the price of the one that I showed you in the video. I've used this. I did a trial. I actually found it was good, but I wasn't able to justify twice the price for that lens. That's just my opinion. Then on the right is the Canon RF 100mm 2.8L again. This lens works only on a mirrorless camera. It weighs at about 685 grams, so a tad heavier than the rest of the lot. The closest focusing distance is 0.26 meters. Angle of view is similar at 20. It's got 8 stops of image stabilization. The price is now getting at $1,200 or $1,590. Now, please, we have to remember that if you are going to start on your journey and buying new equipment, this is also a good starting point. Directly go to the mirrorless and a lens that fits on the mirrorless. But what if you want to transition? Now, what if you want to use any of your old lenses, do they fit on the mirrorless? Yes, they do fit on the mirrorless. So you might need an adapter ring as well. So you might want to just buy a body to begin with and then use your old lenses with an adapter ring on the mirrorless camera. So that's another way to go about it. Phase in. This is a Canon mount adapter for using EF lenses to the mirrorless camera. One end attaches to the back of your lens and the other end attaches to the front of your camera. It's from Canon itself and the price is about £219 from Amazon. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. Do the RF lenses that are meant for the mirrorless camera body, do they fit onto a normal SLR? The answer is no. RF lenses will only fit a mirrorless camera body. So let's look at some of the other options, the non-Canon options. On the left we have the Sigma 105 2.8 Macro. It's got 1:1 magnification and the price is quite a bit less. It's at £359 or $446. Now the one on the right is a Tamron, same 1:1 magnification ratio, even cheaper at £332 or $412. Both decent lenses. And finally we have the TOKINA 100mm F2.8 Macro. Now the advantage is it works both with a full frame and a crop sensor, weighing slightly less at about 500 grams, closest focusing distance is similar, point stabilization, and the price is in the mid-level at $489. So if we compare that to the first one that I showed you, this one's about 500 and this one's about 489. In my view, if you're going to spend that much, might as well go for the Canon's own 100mm f2.8. I hope you found that video of some use. If you like our content, please give us a like and do subscribe to our channel. We constantly want to try and create new videos that are going to be helpful to you. In our next video, we're probably going to do a comparison between the 60mm and the 100mm. So watch this space. Thank you.